Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game also from the penultimate round of this year's Norway Chess. It is the Armageddon game between Nodirbek and Hikaru. Their classical game of course ended with a draw and now they repeat the colors only with different time format. And make no mistake, this game was won by a brilliant move and once you see what happens after this move was played, it will not surprise you why one of the players resigned the game very quickly afterwards, some 2 moves after the said move. So let's check it out. Nodirbek has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We're going to have a pretty standard Berlin defense, knight to c6, bishop to b5, and now knight to f6. The Berlin defense is on the board. We have castles and knight captures on e4. The Rio Gambit accepted, rook to e1, and knight back to d6. All been seen before, of course. Knight captures on e5, bishop to e7, and now bishop back to f1. And here, usually you will see knight captures on e5, but Hikaru wants to mix it up. He plays knight to f5, which is the second most popular continuation, although knight captures on e5 is played quite a bit more. Knight back to f3, we have castles, and pawn to d4 now. We have pawn to d5, and now pawn to c3. We have bishop to d6, and knight b to d2. We have knight c to e7, and now there is a game that reached this exact same position. It was in the Grenke Chess Classic in 2017. Hou Yifan defeated none other than Fabiano Caruana here with the white pieces. She played queen to c2 and won a very nice game, but Nodirbek goes pawn to a4, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So okay, pawn to a5, of course Hikaru knows that you can't just allow white to play b4 whenever white pleases. Bishop to d3, nicely continuing development, putting the bishop on this long diagonal, and pawn to c6, strengthening the d5 pawn. Knight to f1, shifting the knight over to g3 to put more pressure on that f5 knight, and now pawn to g6 with bishop to d2 and knight to g7. Knight f to g7. Now we have knight to g3 and knight e to f5, offering trades on the f5 square, but white doesn't really gain anything by trading, and there's nothing worse than trading for the sake of just trading. That we just don't do that as chess players. So queen to b3, nicely developing and also putting pressure on the b7 pawn, so the bishop will have a hard time being developed, and also in the long run you might find some use along this diagonal. We have knight to h4, offering some trades of pieces, and we have a trade. Knight captures, queen captures, and just knight back to f1. The knight now guards against checkmate on h2, and also you will play g3, kick away the queen, so Hikaru knows it's best to bring the queen back. We have pawn to h3, and now knight to e6. We have bishop to h6, attacking the rook, and the rook to e8, and only now pawn to g3. Bishop to d7 by Hikaru, and knight to h2 now. We have bishop to f8, offering a trade of bishops, and Nodirbek obliges. Captures with the king. We have pawn to h4, and now queen to c7. So a pretty normal position, nothing really happening here. At some point, Nodirbek will try to execute h5, and it's a question whether Hikaru will push his own pawn to h5 to prevent this or not. Here we have knight to f3, and now king back to g7, knight to e5, and now bishop to c8, not allowing the knight to have advantage over the bishop here. Queen back to c2. The queen doesn't really have anything to do on b3 or on c2. Nodirbek is just remaneuvering the queen over to d2, and then you will find some use along the dark squares here. Pawn to c5, striking in the center, of course, makes sense. And now bishop to b5. Puts pressure on the rook, rook to e7, and queen to d2. And here Hikaru should definitely consider pawn to h5. You stop pawn to h5 from white, and it's hard to find any good continuation here. But Hikaru played knight to f8. He probably even invited pawn to h5. He wants Nodirbek to push for the win, and so he does. Pawn to h5. We have c4, now closing this bishop's path to return on this long diagonal, and it's not really going to be all that of all that much use on b5, but that's only what you would think. Here we have pawn to h6 with check, the absolute best move by Nodirbek. King to g8, much better than king to h8, because you go on a dark square and then you have to worry about queen to f6 coming with tempo. So king to g8, and now queen to f4 by Nodirbek. Queen to g5 would have been much better, because here you don't have to worry about bishop to f5 blocking your reach of the f6 square. But even queen to f4 is perfectly fine. Point is that it's incredibly difficult to continue this game. What you should do is definitely play bishop to f5, but even this, I will just show you a fun line, because it's also also winning for white. Pawn to g4, you really want to get to that f6 square. Now knight to e6, kicks away your queen, queen to f3, and now bishop to e4. You will go after the white queen. Queen to f6, now preparing to checkmate the black king after the knight here is dealt with. And after queen to d8, you will play rook captures on e4. That's how you reach the knight. Pawn captures, and now pawn to d5, saying you either move the knight and I checkmate you, or you capture with the queen, and then look at this. Queen captures on d5. Now comes the bishop captures on c4, and now you have to move the queen, bishop captures knight, and it's game over. So here basically you cannot capture on d5. You have to play a slow move like rook to c7. But now, okay, a queen trade is offered. You simply trade. The queen captures. You're going to play knight captures, and now pawn to d6. And even though black is up the exchange, it's white who is completely winning here due to the pass to d pawn. So that's how you win. However, after queen to f4, Hikaru finds a beautiful defensive resource, that is pawn to f5, and this is only bested by finding a true brilliancy of a move that Nodirbek did find. So feel free to pause the video and try to spot this idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this incredible maneuver. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on c4. There are other moves that, of course, will give you a fine position, like queen to g5, queen to h4, or they are all very nice, but knight captures on c4 is just incredibly forcing and just shows you that there is nothing you can do. And you don't have all that many moves to consider here. You can capture the knight, you can capture the queen, or you can block with bishop to e6, and none of it really works. In the game, queen captures on f4 was played on. I will just show you what happens if you capture the knight. If you play d captures on c4, then bishop captures on c4 with check. And now, how do you meet this move? You can play bishop to e6. You can play queen captures on c4. You can play king to h8, but none of it works. If you play king to h8, just queen captures on c7, rook captures, and now this phenomenal rook to e8. You are threatening checkmate. Because the pawn is covering g7. So even if the rook captures the bishop on c4, rook captures on f8 will be checkmate. The only way to avoid this is to move the bishop, let's say bishop to d7, you offer a full rook, but then after rook captures on a8, you will play bishop to c8, close off the rook's reach to the knight, and now you are threatening to pick up the bishop, but just bishop to b3, and black is without a move. Whatever black plays, and there's really nothing you can play, you're gonna go rook to e1, rook to e8, capture the knight, and checkmate the black king. There is absolutely nothing black can do about this because the black king is just stuck there on h8. So that's what happens after bishop captures on c4 if you play king to h8. Another move, of course, is to capture the bishop on c4, but now rook captures on e7, and okay, you might think, okay, I'm done the exchange, maybe I can play this. No, you can't. You're not even done the exchange. You have a bishop and knight for a rook, but you are dead lost because there's no defense against queen to e5. Queen to e5 and checkmate on g7. That's it. The only way to take away the e5 square from white is queen to d5, but then pawn to c4, and now you can no longer keep an eye on the e5 square. And also after bishop captures on c4, you could consider bishop to e6, but it just doesn't work. You can pretty much play anything here. You can capture, then capture on c6. You can capture on c6 first, doesn't really matter. Bishop captures will come with check. You can play knight captures, queen captures on c7. You're going to play rook captures, and the rook captures on e6, and you are just up 2 pawns in a completely winning a rook endgame. So that's the problem. So that's why after knight captures on c4, Hikaru thought, all right, let's trade queens. I cannot touch the knight, so queen captures on f4 was played, g captures on f4, and now again, you cannot touch the knight because the rook on e7 is hanging, so knight to e6 was played, but now Nodirbek just plays knight to b6. Here Hikaru played rook to b8, but also he was in this position on move 36 after making this move that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Yes, you do have some material here, but now you're also going to lose the d5 pawn, and that's just unplayable. Knight captures on d5. Nodirbek will be up 2 pawns, and I mean, where are you even moving that rook? If rook to f7, you're going to play knight back to b6. The bishop now can come to this diagonal. It's a complete massacre. If rook to f6, we can even play knight captures on c8, rook captures, bishop to d7. So there's no move Hikaru can make here. Whatever he makes, he's just going to suffer severe material loss. So yeah, really wonderfully done by Nodirbek after this pawn to f5, which was okay. Probably Hikaru thought bishop f5. Okay, I've calculated this loses. Maybe pawn to f5 holds if Nodirbek does not play it to perfection, but he did. He found knight captures on c4. The engine even gives it a double exclamation mark. So you know it's a brilliant move. And yeah, I didn't show it in the previous video, but these are the encounters. So Gukesh defeated Tari in Classical. We've seen that game. Alireza lost to Anish in Armageddon. Shahryar lost to Magnus Carlsen in Armageddon. And Nodirbek defeated Hikaru in Armageddon. And Fabiano Caruana defeated Wesley So in Armageddon. And as Hikaru lost to Nodirbek, these are the standings before round 9. So Fabi leading with 16 points, Hikaru trailing with 13.5 points. So if Hikaru beats Fabi in Classical, and Hikaru will have the white pieces against Fabi in Classical, then Hikaru will win the tournament. If not, Fabi is the winner, as he's the only one who can catch up to him. Okay, Gukesh, he's on 13 points. So if Gukesh wins his Classical and Fabi loses his Classical, but yeah, if Fabi loses, he lost to Hikaru, so Hikaru is the winner. So unfortunately for Gukesh, even though he played a spectacular tournament, he's half a point behind of being able to tying for first place. Then you have Wesley and Anish with 11.5, Magnus with 10.5, progressing slowly but progressing. Magnus, again, like I said, after his loss to Fabi in round 1, won all of the matches, but he won all of them in Armageddon. Sharing with Alireza in 7th place, then Shahryar in 8th, Nodirbek with 7.5 in 9th place, and Tari still in last place with 10 points. And I've shown it in the previous video, but also if you haven't seen it, the big winners are Fabi on plus 13.5 in 2nd place, Wesley plus 4, Anish plus 3, Gukesh plus 7, and he's now on number 13 in the world. Absolutely incredible. And that's pretty much it. Nodirbek lost some points. He's on -8, but still, you know, in top 25. So yeah, that's the game and a little bit of extra info. So hope you enjoyed that. We'll see what happens in the final round. Should be absolutely incredible. I would like to thank David Kimura, David Gasparian, Ricky Johnson, Faryad Darabi Esaneh, and Haider Aga for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Norway Chess, the final round, until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.